Hello and welcome to C4 Discussions, where we engage in compassionate, clarifying, courageous conversations about real world issues and concerns, and where messy meets metaphysical. We are your hosts. I'm Ray,
And I'm James.
and let's begin. Hello and welcome to C4 Conversations, episode 5, where my beloved brother and I, Reverend James, will be discussing a very interesting topic that is very timely for today. If this is your first time tuning in, buckle up and get ready, because we do not do how do we want to say? We don't do that superficial chit chat. This is not a place for small talk. These conversations are real world relevant and applicable. Our goal is that these conversations uplift the collective consciousness. And so if you are here today watching this, then consider yourself tapped on the shoulder that you are in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us. So with that, James, you have anything you want to say to kick us off?
No, I just love to dive into the slides that you created and that intro that you set up, if that works for you.
Yes. Then we shall jump into that. And just so you know, for those who are joining in, if this is your first time, wherever it is that you're watching this from, if it's YouTube, feel free to type into the chat box and James and or I will respond if you have questions. You can also email us. You will get the email. It will show up in a moment. Just so you know, we would like to welcome you into the conversation rather than you just sit back and watch. We're not the Golden Girls, and this isn't a sitcom. So, episode 5, beliefs and belief systems. What do you believe and why do you believe it? Have you ever sat back and asked yourself, what do I believe? And why do I believe that? The average person hasn't, right? Because beliefs happen. They go, they move. It's part of our regular, just like breathing. If I were to ask, how many times have you breathed today? Most of us don't know because we're not consciously counting or aware. Beliefs are the same thing. They move through our consciousness. So let's start with a basic definition. Belief as a noun. An acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. It involves trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. For example, if I were to say, James, how old are you? And he says, 12. Am I likely to believe him? No. No. But why not? According to him, same thing. Well, I mean the evidence. Okay, let's go far the other way. If James were to say, "Oh, I'm 112," am I likely to believe that? No. Why not? Okay, but if he gives me a range anywhere between, we'll say 30 and 60, am I likely to believe that? Yeah. But do I know it? No. But I trust that what he is telling me is in fact accurate. It is a statement someone makes, and I accept. You accept it to be true based upon a certain amount of or a certain level of evidence. Trust. Keep that in mind. Some Similar words or concepts: opinion, point of view, faith, assumption, etc. So when someone says they have faith, right? I have faith that Reverend Ray will email me back. What are they saying? They're saying that they trust, they're saying that they believe based upon a certain amount of evidence. There is a belief regarding it. So see, we use a lot of different words to convey the concepts. Just keep that in mind. Some examples of beliefs: one can have religious beliefs, scientific beliefs, political beliefs, moral or ethical beliefs, and of course, personal beliefs. And for only $29.99, did you also know that many of these cross over? For example, if someone has a religious belief and a scientific belief, I believe that the earth was created in 6 days and God rested on the seventh. God did not make dinosaurs. Therefore, when science says whatever science says about dinosaurs, I do not believe that, and I believe this. Okay. What about one's moral or ethical? Okay, so religion. The Ku Klux Klan, religious organization, had certain beliefs about morals and ethics where for them it was okay to lynch black folks based on their religion. So just be aware that many of these things, they do not exist in silos of separation, but that they all flow in and out of each other. And so our invitation, as James and I will be discussing, our invitation is to pause and think about, how are the beliefs that we have impacting the ways that we show up in the world?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So along those lines, I'd like to share a little bit about my experience with beliefs. I was probably a young teenager, 12 or 13 years old. I did a pretty liberal Protestant church with my family. And about that time, the church put on a class for myself and other teenagers. And the class was designed to give us information about joining the church. And I remember attending all those classes, and all my friends from church were there. So, I had a great time in the classes, and I don't remember a whole lot about what I learned back then, but the classes were informative and I learned a lot of stuff. And then fast forward to the Sunday when it was time for us to join the church. I remember I was sitting beside my mom and the minister asked all the teenagers who had attended this class to come up front and join the church. And I remember looking over and seeing my friends walk up the aisle, and I burst into tears. And I remember grabbing onto my mom and just like kind of freaking out. And I don't know why I did that. I do know that whatever was happening inside of me was not comfortable with getting out of my chair and going up to the front of the church and becoming part of the church. And I don't know exactly what that was, but I remember being freaked out. So when that happened, there was some sort of belief wall that came down for me. And it radically impacted my relationship. That belief radically impacted my relationship to religion. And I kept on going to church, and I went to that church for several more years. I never did become a member of the church, but I remember at one point I stopped going to church, and I pretty much had religion. I had no connection with any religion for 2 decades, something like that, a long time. And then I was taking a class at a Science of Mind church, a Centers for Spiritual Living church. And the teacher was talking about faith. And she was up on the stage and I was down in the audience. And I remember I looked over at my hand kind of raised by itself. And I look at my hand and said, okay, I guess I got a question. And she called on me. And I said something like, I think I'm having a crisis in faith. And she walked down off the stage and walked over in the aisle right next to me and said, would you please stand up? And I kind of look around, I'm kind of uncomfortable. It's like, okay. And so I stood up and I'm like 8 inches taller than she is. I'm looking down at her. And she says, may I please hold your hands? And once again, I was kind of, okay, uncomfortable, but I guess I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And I remember holding her hands and she looked up at me. Her eyes were right there and she was totally present in the moment. This big old energy field coming out of this little lady. And she looked right in my eyes and she said, I'll hold faith for you as you walk towards it. And I started crying. And I was kind of crushed. And I mumbled something to her and I sat back down. And I remember sitting there and I was processing like crazy. What's going on? And what I got was that belief wall that I had put in place when I was a teenager at that church that I attended as a kid started crumbling as I was sitting there in my chair. And I could feel like a null space kind of. I could feel like something was missing. Like I've been living with that belief wall for like 20 years. And I could feel something was missing. And I could feel possibility as that old belief wall was crumbling and softening. I had more possibility about what beliefs I want to put in place about religion.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I think it's interesting that I was going to share a religion transformation story too. And very similarly, so growing up Christian in a non-church going Christian home, mostly my church was TV, televangelist kind of things, Oral Roberts, Pat Robertson, etc., Billy Graham. And one of the things that my father instilled in me from a very early age was question everything. Okay. So when I finally reach an age of going to church, so it's very different being in the building versus watching them on television, number one. And I'm noticing this is different. And then I'm also noticing some of the messaging is different. In person, there's a lot more, you're going to hell, be afraid of the devil, we don't like gay people. Like in person, there's a lot of that versus on television. So, I got questions like, wait, why? What's going on? What makes this different? Fast forward, I also started attending, Bible studies and new member orientation things because I think I want to do this. And the invitation, anybody have any questions? So little Ray, at what, 10, 11 years old, starts asking questions. They didn't like Ray's questions, so they either ignored them or sidestepped them, told me not to ask them. Well, I guess at some point I assumed the role of being the rebellious child, because if you tell me no, don't ask, all the more reason I'm going to ask. Like, wait, why can't I ask? You said if you got any questions, I got questions, so answer them. Fast forward, as a result of me asking questions, I am invited to no longer attend the Bible study, don't come back to the church, etc. So that does nothing except crack me open even more with, why not? What's going on? So what I discovered years later, especially looking in hindsight, was my questions were challenging their beliefs. And they were challenging their beliefs in ways that they weren't willing to have their beliefs be challenged. So that's one. But as a result of getting into that space, and then I eventually go to college to become an art teacher, and you have to take a philosophy course in this school, and it's a Catholic school, so you got to take at least one theology course. So here I am in a class for the Old Testament, and a nun walks in to teach the class. And when I say that I'm thinking she's going to share stories from the Old Testament as though she was there in person, trust me, this woman, I'm like, if she comes out of her mouth and says she grew up with Moses, I'm going to believe her, because that's how old this woman looked. One of the first things out of her mouth was, raise your hand if you believe that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, written from God's own mouth through the minds and then the hands of men. Every hand in the class goes up except for mine. Mm-hmm. So the nun says, all of you with your hands up now, you have a lot to learn. I'm curious to know why you didn't raise your hand. You appear to be the only one that has sense. Wait, what? She then goes through explaining how the Bible is a book of mythology, metaphysical, theology, parable, poetry, etc. And that in order to glean the beneficial stuff from the Bible, we have to sit with it in terms of our beliefs. Because she said, you can read the Bible, and if you read it from a belief system of hurt and harm, the Bible will give you reason to hurt and harm. If you read it from a place of love and compassion, the Bible will give you reason to live in that space of love and compassion. It's not the Bible, it's what we bring when we go to the Bible that matters most. Well, that completely like cracked me open, where I was like, what is she talking about? Like I was lost. And then she said the word metaphysical, which of course sent me down a different rabbit hole, because I don't even know if I heard that word before. So I go back to philosophy class and I ask the instructor, and he explains what metaphysics is, and I'm like, oh. Now fast forward, I leave traditional Christianity and I have the opportunity to start New Thought. And I sit there and say, okay, so what do I believe about this? Because it's not so much what it is offering, what am I bringing to it that then gives it, right? So I think that's one of the big things that this story is referencing for me, is the reciprocity of our beliefs. Our beliefs exist in single isolation. What I believe impacts you, even if we're not in the same space. Because if I believe, this thing, I'm driving down the street and I blow my nose, this snot covered tissue, I throw it out the car window. Why did I do that? Because I believe it doesn't matter. That's called litter. The amount of litter it affects the climate, it affects the environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then that means it affects you and affects people in Japan who aren't eating, right? It affects everybody. Our beliefs affect folks. So there's a reciprocity too. And most of us, because I know I sure wasn't, we're not even aware of that. And I think that's part of our invitation here is what we're offering folks is the realization that your beliefs matter.
Yeah.
To such a degree, your beliefs create matter.
Ooh.
Dun, 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 dun.
Talking metaphysical.
Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. It changes stuff, right? It changes behaviors. Behaviors create habits. Habits create structures. Structures can oppress. Structures can set free. Structures can whatever. So the belief, the Wright brothers had a belief that flight was possible, and they made a plane. Ford believed in a car. Automobile was, someone believed in AI. Someone believed in the telephone, the smartphone. Our beliefs, our thoughts are creative. So why wouldn't we want to understand that better?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. One metaphor or analogy I like to use is our beliefs are kind of like glasses. We put our glasses on, and it is these glasses represent a particular belief. Then when we first put the glasses on, when we first put the belief on, it's pretty present. It's like it's in our consciousness, if you will. After a while, we get used to the glasses, we get used to the belief or the beliefs, and then it's hard to see them again. So having the ability to witness or notice our beliefs is extraordinarily powerful. And being willing to look at our beliefs, being willing to look at the things that are kind of like automatically running in the background, because that's what a lot of unconscious beliefs are, automatically running in the background. When we can stop and we can notice and we can observe a particular belief, then we have the possibility for shifting it. But until we notice it, until we be willing to look at it and then be responsible for it, it's very difficult to get outside of the beliefs. And then quite often, I know I have this, I have certain beliefs that are true. And, you know, I'm putting quotation marks around. Everyone has their own truth, their own truths, you know, S at the end there. When we believe something is true, it makes it a whole lot more difficult to shift belief. And it makes it more difficult to notice it and to witness and be responsible for it well. So this process of, I'm going to call it waking up. You know, I think it's something that we all have an opportunity to do every day, every week, every month, every year, is this process of waking up to what we believe and then choosing about those beliefs.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. And before I go to the slides, because I want to share something that I think will help people. What you just shared is a perfect segue. But I want to throw this out there, referencing the idea of how unconscious we can be about our beliefs. Anyone who wears glasses, and you know, you might take them off to go to bed or whatever, you'll understand this. How many times have the glasses been on our face, on our head, and we're like, oh my goodness, where did I put my glasses? I thought I left. Oh, man. And then someone will say, Ray, you get, oh, wow, they're right. Wow. So if we can literally do that with something right in front of our face, it is that much more I don't even ephemeral regarding belief, because I can hold these in my hand. I can't hold a belief like, look, James, you see that belief? That's a belief that corn pudding is delicious. And James is like, Okay, I'll take your word for it, right? You can't see it, it's not tangible. Glasses are. And if these can be forgotten, these can be slightly misplaced, then with the beliefs. Okay, so since James opened the Pandora's box regarding this, I want to give you all a very cool way of visualizing what he just shared. So if I were to interview you, everyone, and say, do you know who this is? I'm sure most of you are going to say, oh, that's Lucky Charms leprechaun, right? No, come on now. It's Santa Claus. Now, why do you know this? Because somewhere you have a belief, and that belief has an image, and that image is however it's represented. There's recognition because of the belief that you have. So even if Santa Claus is shown in cartoon form or whatever, the only reason you can recognize it, recognize it, rethink it, or think about it is because you already have an image in your mind. You already have a belief about it. So let's think about beliefs this way. There's a tree. The trunk is what your identifiable belief is, right? I believe, and then you can communicate it. As a result of that, there are all of the effects that happen because you believe this, right? I believe that cars can run me over. Okay, that's a belief I can identify. Right? The effect of that is before I go running into the street, I look both ways to make sure that a car is not coming, right? That's easy to gain. But what we don't see in this image right now, which the question mark is pointing to, what's beneath the surface? So beneath the surface are the unidentifiable beliefs. They are beliefs that are at the subconscious level that we 99.9% of the time we're unaware of. Right? And note, that's what gives the tree nutrients, right? So the vast majority of what is fueling our lives is running in the background are these unidentifiable beliefs. So let's go back and we're going to talk Santa Claus. He is going to represent our identifiable belief. I believe in Santa Claus. Now, the thing is, interestingly enough, all of us believe in Santa Claus. You know how James just mentioned we all have truths. The question isn't, do you believe that Santa Claus is real, meaning living, breathing, moving, but as an archetype, as a character, Santa Claus is real, right? So he is real, but not real in the way that we may have believed he was real when we were children. Just separating real from real and what's real. Wait, what? Exactly. So we have the identifiable beliefs. Okay, so when you believe, we'll talk as children. As children, when we believed that Santa Claus was real, there were effects that we exhibited as a result. Our behavior changed, our attitude changed, our level of generosity, our demeanor. You better watch out. You better not. Oh, let me get my stuff together because Santa Claus is coming to town. We changed. We changed as a result of that belief. Now, there are certain unidentifiable beliefs that if you believe in Santa Claus, you also believed in a couple other things that you weren't aware that you also believed. You had to believe in magic, magical beings. You had to believe in kindness and goodness, that there is prize versus punishment. You had to believe these things. But you probably weren't aware, as I wasn't, These were even things that went along with the identifiable belief called Santa Claus. Now, the thing is, that's the way it works with all of our beliefs. So no matter what the belief is, if I believe that women should be subservient to men, as we know that there are many living, breathing people today who believe that. If that's the identifiable belief, then it's going to change the effects. It's going to affect how I speak to women, how I speak about women, how I treat women, etc. How I raise daughters if I have them, right? That's all the branches and the leaves. Okay, well, what's beneath that? Under the ground, the roots, the things that are driving. Okay, so what's causing this belief? Is it based in religion? Well, you know, Eve was made to serve Adam. Okay, and the Bible says that, okay. So all beneath the surface, there's the other things that are moving and working. So again, our invitation is pause for a moment, select a belief. It could be a belief you have about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Where'd that come from? What's it rooted in? What's driving that belief? And more importantly, how is that belief causing you to behave? How is it causing other people to behave, to believe? You know, people who, I'm not going to say any names, although I am tempted to. There are a lot of rich people who have enough money that they could spend $1 million every single day, $1 million. And they could have started when Jesus was walking the planet, and they would still be a billionaire today. It's a lot of money. And yet they want more. Because there's a belief, there's a core belief, there's a root system, and the branch and leaf system. And I can guarantee you that they are unaware of any of this. All they know is they have a core belief that says money is necessary, money is desirable, but I can almost guarantee you that they have no idea where it's coming from, especially when you have so much and you still want more. It's actually coming from a place of lack and scarcity because you're operating based in fear. And that fear causes you to hurt others, which is why there are many billionaires who do not pay their employees a living wage. It's all based on beliefs.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes. As I was preparing for this podcast, I did some research and came across, once again, the tree, the obvious things that we can all see, or that in politics, when Kamala Harris was running for president, they called her Kamala, and when Trump was running against her, they called him Trump. And I started digging into that, and it's not unusual in politics and in other arenas as well to call a woman or someone with feminine energy by their first name. Even inside of this thing called politics, inside of Kamala Harris running for president, she was referred to as Kamala. Well, men are referred to by their last name, and this real obvious, this what everyone sees. Well, underneath it, you get down to the root system of that. It's dishonoring women. It's disempowering people with feminine energy to call them by their first name, and to call a person with masculine energy by their last name. I went on Etsy, I was doing research, I was looking at hats, and I saw a hat that said, Kamala got everything right. And then it talked about the governor of California. There was a hat for him. Newsom got everything right. Once again, Kamala's first name, Newsom's last name. So, again, this is one of those really slippery ones that I didn't even really get till very recently. When Kamala Harris was running for president, I referred to her as Kamala. I had no idea that I was, in that usage of her first name, I was disempowering her.
And that right there is what you started off with earlier with the idea of their subconscious stuff moving. That's a perfect example of most of us have, it's normal. We're calling her by her name, right? It's not like we're calling her. It's different when there were certain people calling her directly Kamala. So we're like, well, no, we're pronouncing it correctly, so that's a good thing. That's yay, yay, yay. Yet we didn't even realize, oh, well, wait a minute. Why are we using her first name? Wait a minute. That's the same thing that happened with Hillary. We used her first name. Wait, why? Because of what you just said. There's a implicit bias that's subconscious in the mindset of most of us that, and I'll just throw this out there. When I was in school, in college, to become an art teacher, there was a specific class. I don't remember what the class specifically was, but there was a specific class to help us break out of the biases that educators have. Because prior to my generation of teachers, educators were still gearing young boys, elementary school, middle school, and definitely high school, towards math and science and that stuff. And they were gearing girls towards literature and art and home ec and, nothing with science, nothing with math, nothing. What? But what? Because the implicit bias says, oh, they're girls. That's, pink. And that's the stuff that's under, beneath the surface at that level of the trunk that I mentioned before. And so as, James is inviting us with this idea is to see the whole thing, sort of gestalt, take in the whole holistic idea that says, whatever it is that we're doing, ask yourself, so when I'm referring to a political candidate, how do I refer to them? Just pausing and even asking the question begins to set you up for a deeper level of understanding. Because we think and yet rarely think about what we're thinking about. This means we rarely examine our BS, our belief systems.
Yes.
Which have in most cases been handed down to us, right? We simply repeat a lot of what's been done. So I invite you to screen capture, or, if you want to know, just send an email, some of what this is sharing, right? Because it's different kinds of beliefs. And the idea is to pause and look at, and I just gave you 6 examples. Ask yourself, what do I believe regarding politeness, regarding discrimination or non-discrimination, regarding marriage, right? Like that's a big thing right now, is the Supreme Court may be re-listening to arguments to undo marriage equity for the LGBTQ community. Well, why is that a thing? Because there are some people who believe that marriage is ordained by God to be a man and a woman. So the invitation is, pause, ask yourself, what do I believe and how does it show up in my world? When I'm saying what I'm saying about someone or something, what's the belief that's driving that? And the more we pause, just give yourself a pause and check in. So if James were to say, Ray, have you ever been to New York City? And I say, ugh. That response is already priming his consciousness to be like, oh, like, wait, what is he getting ready to share with me? Because That was not the look of, oh my goodness, it's like Disney. That was, I should probably avoid this place. There's a belief. Now, it's my personal experience. I actually love New York, but for the sake of the story, it's my personal experience. Based upon what I experienced, it formed a belief about an entire city or an entire population of a city. Is that fair? Is it fair to lump an entire gender? You know how women are. Well, come on, James, you know how white people are, or black people are, or there's another thing. Why do we refer to these two groups, black and white, but we refer to others as Chinese or Japanese, Korean? We refer to others as German, Italian, French, Native American, Hispanic, Mexican, Latino, Latine. Why are these two specifically a color? And I understand that years ago, you know, the indigenous peoples were referred to as Indians and referred to as the red man. And yeah, I got that. And Chinese were yellow. Yeah, years ago. But we evolved past their colors. Why is there still a very concretized belief regarding black and white? Just putting it out there is something to pause and say, huh, have I ever really thought about that? Because the more we engage in that, the more we can heal and evolve.
Yes, well said. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that's happening, it's fairly recent, is cable news and social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've touched on this before, but I'm going to go there again inside this context of looking at our beliefs. And I've done some research about how both cable news and social media can impact our beliefs in a subconscious way. Quite often, as we're interacting with either one of them, we're subconsciously, I'm going to do it this way, subconsciously programmed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a dopamine addiction that happens inside of social media, the actual scrolling process, the information from the algorithms that target exactly what you want to see, and you don't see anything else. Occasionally they'll throw, something that's a little bit different in, but if you don't react to it, or watch it or scroll through it or whatever, then they stop sending. Social media stops sending
Mm-hmm.
that information. So the dopamine addiction that arises as we interact with social media, especially if we do it for a long time, there's some sort of truth, if you will, about if we do doom scrolling on social media for a long time, it can really kick in that dopamine addiction. So with cable news, quite often one of the things that cable news does is they give you really challenging, hardcore, quote unquote, negative information.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a tendency, human beings, generally speaking, have a tendency to be attracted to the challenging parts, the negative parts of our life. So that one piece can also be addiction too. So why am I talking about social media and cable news inside this belief conversation? Well, our beliefs can be, and I say our beliefs are definitely impacted by both of those environments. Cable news specifically. I just wanted to share this piece with you one moment. So the constant barrage of breaking news alerts and headlines is a potent trigger for dopamine release, reinforcing the impulse to stay constantly informed. So there's some other pieces to it too, but I want to pass the ball back to you, Ray, to see if there's anything you wanted to comment about this stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the vast majority of QAnon related conspiracy theories, just the concept, conspiracy theory can be equated with it's a belief in a conspiracy. You know, theory, to theorize something is to think about it, and the thoughts are their beliefs. So I believe in the Pizzagate. I believe it's true. Well, it's going to affect something. So when social media and the platforms, whoop, this barrage of, there have been several people recently, like literally within the last month, who have been doing TEDx talks and researching the human brain was not made, is not created, is not a thing that can take so much information. We have information overload. In essence, that's what you shared. It's a barrage of so many things, which is why we get caught in, oh, this, oh, look, I'm gonna save that. Oh, look. 3 hours later, oh, look, I'm gonna save that. And all this, the colors, the sounds, the music, the likes, the hearts, the emojis, it's so much stuff that the human brain has to very quickly sort through. It's like, okay, and it grabs whatever's got its attention, and it's so myopic and focused on this one thing that very well may be a lie, that this other stuff goes by. And it's because of this, which is why many people, why is fact checking such a big thing on social media now? Because so many of us share things without thinking, without validating, like, is this true? Am I sharing some? I'm sharing it as though it is in fact the case, but it's not. Someone else, and then we continue to spiral and share misinformation and malinformation and all this other stuff. So once again, if you are someone, whoever, wherever you are, if you are on social media, no matter what it is, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, Snapchat, pause. How much time do I spend on any of these platforms? Just pausing and checking that begins to break the pattern.
Yes.
And then commit to, wow, I didn't realize I spent that much time on, wow. Now you have a framework to which you can say, do I continue to do this? Or do I consciously choose to downgrade and say, okay, I'm going to start with, I'm gonna start with 2 hours a day. That's it. 2 hours a day throughout the entire day. It's only 2 hours. Okay. And then commit to it. But the idea is start with, check in, ask, what am I willing to change? Because in order to change a behavior, there's a belief connected to it that also must change. If the behavior is doom scrolling, because I'm now addicted to the dopamine hit, then in essence, a 12-step program of some sort. Hi, I'm Ray, and I'm addicted to social media. Welcome, Ray. And I go through the same 12 steps as in AA and NA, etc., because I'm literally addicted to doom scrolling, which means now the belief that made me start, it can go sit down and, drink a cup of tea. I'm on autopilot now. Because what's fueling me now is the dopamine. It's not even a conscious thought at this point anymore. It's just dopamine, dope, 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 dope. And that's the routine now. So the belief that started it, it's off in the corner somewhere. It's the drug that's keeping me going. So to undo
Yes.
that, I've got to call a new belief in place to now break up that pattern.
Yes. Well said. So some 6 weeks ago, I realized that I had a dopamine addiction. I was on Instagram a lot. I haven't been on Facebook for quite a long time. And I thought, well, if I'm not doing Facebook, then I'm not addicted to something. Well, I went over to Instagram, and several weeks later, I realized that I was addicted to Instagram now. So what I did is I called it a social media cloister. I know that there's social media, what's it called? Fast. A lot of people call it a social media fast. As I was wrestling with this addiction, it's like, no, a social media fast isn't strong enough for me. I need to do a cloister. Cloister means you don't do it at all. So I've been on a social media cloister for about 6 weeks now. I haven't done any social media. And what happened is I realized pretty quickly when I went on the cloister, the social media cloister, is that when I was inside the dopamine addiction, all my other addictions that I've been fighting with, I've been working with, I've been healing for decades, they were in the space as well. Addiction energy is just that. There's an energy associated, regardless of what context, whether it's, alcohol or marijuana or whatever, whatever the addiction is, there's an energy to it. And I noticed I wasn't doing all the other addictions, codependency. I did Codependency Anonymous for 2.5 years. I wasn't being codependent, but the energy was there as well as I was inside the dopamine addiction. So one of the things that's happened is since I've been on this social media cloister is that I've noticed that I have a lot more internal power. There's a lot more internal presence. There's a lot more access to letting my light, letting my power flow. So that wasn't happening when I was on in the social media addiction, the dopamine addiction. So moving forward, I'm a minister. I have to use social media to, interact, with other folks, other ministers, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not quite sure what it's going to look like when I do go back to social media. I suspect I'll choose one platform, not 3 or 4 different platforms. And I'll be very aware of the possibility of getting back into the doom scrolling addiction.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Because once again, so many years ago, because many members of my family have had addiction to substance abuse. So having gone through 12-step programs myself as a relative of people with addiction, one of the things I distinctly remember learning was how easy it is for us to get addicted to stuff, and that many times the addictions that we get into are things we don't even realize we're addicted to because they're legal. Food, people who get addicted to food, comfort eating, addicted to work. Well, you have to work. So workaholics, and what we frame it as, keep your nose to the grindstone, and you're doing the thing, and it's an addiction. Once it reaches a certain point, it's an addiction. And there's a lot of these other things that it's a regular part of living. Exercise. There are people who are addicted to it, but they don't identify it as an addiction because they have separated, well, that's drugs, and that's, it's bad stuff. Exercise is good. Yeah, but if it's an addiction, so it's very easy, as you said, we're in the 21st century. Almost everybody, especially moving forward, social media and technology and AI, it's the way the world is moving.
Yep.
So to say, okay, I'm gonna get on here, it's easy to slip back into the, oh, I'm doing it again, ain't I? It's so difficult to stop, though. So yeah, I'm right there with you, because as a minister, it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole of how many hours did I just spend on. I don't have to respond to every single comment that somebody. Yeah. So I'm right there with you. The cloister is definitely an empowering space to be in when necessary. And to your credit, it started with you recognizing that that was even a necessary thing for you. So to anyone who may be watching, ask yourself, how are your beliefs connected to any addictions that you may be experiencing? Anything. Just, like I said, exercise or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to go for it? Go for it.
I don't have anything else specific. Did you have anything else that you want to touch on?
Other than sharing some of the resources that I came up with, no, I think we gave them a lot to think about today.
Yes, we did.
So, a couple of resources that you may find enlightening and interesting. The second, third, and fourth are TEDx. If you're familiar with TEDx, then they're things for you to watch. The first one is an article in a Psychology Today online magazine regarding 3 ways that your beliefs can shape your reality. Let me say that again. 3 ways that your beliefs can shape your reality. And as the second TEDx, reimagining the stories we tell. When we tell certain stories about our lives, oh, woe is me, for I was, okay, how is that story, which is now a belief, a series of beliefs, a belief system, shaping my reality? And then 4 tips for developing critical thinking skills. That is wildly missing in today's sphere of political, theological, like critical thinking. So I encourage you to check out some of those resources. And other than that, any final comments, James?
Thank you all for being willing to come play with us. I call it playing when we're doing this sort of thing. And it's just a huge gift to Ray and I that you're participating with us. And I wish you presence moving forward. When we're present in the moment and we can notice the different beliefs that are unconscious, not to mention conscious, when we can notice those beliefs and be willing to shift them, it's transformational for the quality of our life. From my experience, every time I've noticed a belief and noticed the impact coming off that belief, and I've been responsible for it, and I've shifted something, it's been transformational. The quality of my life has skyrocketed. So I invite you to be the person who's present in the moment, is willing to be responsible for their beliefs.
Amen. Amen. And what he said. Blessings, everyone. Until next time, be well, take care, and mind your thoughts. Take care.